What's up, everybody? We're releasing an episode a little bit more quickly here. We recorded this one when I was doing the intro and the outro for the Spag episode. And basically, Jake was coming over to my place. No regret, Jake. And me and Ryan were already doing this recording. And then I thought, wait a minute. If Jake's here, why don't we just do another podcast with him? So I just threw him on the mic, and we got to chat for a little bit. And I actually think the more times I bring people on repeatedly onto the podcast, the better the conversations get. People are getting more and more and more comfortable. And so, anyways, I've got some updates for you guys. If you are donating $5 or more on Patreon now, you get access to the after show. That's a private podcast only for people who are Patreon supporters, and that's starting with this episode. So if you're liking this and you want to hear us continue on and talk, maybe be a little bit more off the cuff, you go ahead and just support us there, and then you'll get access to that. We're trying to get a system set up where you're really getting something back if you are supporting us. And that's obviously, as I'm always saying in the podcast, patreon.com/tasteless podcast. And is there anything else I need to mention?
I think that's just about it.
Oh, we might be changing the release date.
Oh, yeah, that's quite important.
Yeah, that's important. So we're thinking about doing Fridays. We're going to poll Patreon users. I might put a poll on Twitter as well. Yeah, and in this conversation, I mean, Jake, we just talk about whatever. We're just riffing. He came over to my house to talk about KSL because he was filling in for Artosis. Artosis was at Corrupted Cup in Russia. Whoa, my mouth is not working today. He was at Corrupted Cup in Russia, and so I needed somebody to fill, so I was over there. He was over at my place. I was showing him StarCraft stuff so we could get ready for the cast. Anyways, enjoy this episode. Here you go. So should we start? Should we just go? All right.
Well,
Hi, Jake.
Hello?
So Jake just got to my house. We happened to have the mic set up because I was going to record the intro and the outro for episode 13 with Spag, which was a fucking dope episode. And Jake has come over. Mm-hmm. No regret, excuse me, has come over. Here. Because tomorrow we have the first day of KSL.
Indeed we do.
Artosis is in Russia, along with Rapid. They're both down there at Corrupted Cup. Artosis is playing.
That's exciting.
So if you're listening to this is before he has won the entire tournament. And Jake is down here. We're gonna do some prep work for StarCraft 1. What is it like for you as a StarCraft 2 player
to commentate StarCraft 1?
By the way, I'll let everybody know we sprung this on him. We just realized the mics are set up and he's here. We might as well just force him to do a podcast.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to do a podcast. It's interesting. It's really interesting because it's originally the game that got me into it. But at the same time,
you were like what? How old?
Very young, like 8, 9. When I was getting out of it, I was like 9 or 10. So like my entire exposure to StarCraft 1 was between the ages of like 5 and 10. So my understanding of competition itself was very limited. And all my games were basically UMS and like, fastest or whatever, like just the fun stuff, nothing competitive.
Did you do the campaign?
No.
You didn't do the campaign?
I should have, but I did not. I think I did, but I was too young to understand it fully because I don't remember any of it now. But I feel like I did.
So did you ever play Warcraft 2?
No.
So that's the one I started on.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is before I even knew what an RTS was. Well, I mean, I guess they were just kind of being developed. It's like when, I guess for everybody that's listening now, it's like when you first played a battle royale, where you're like, well, this is just different.
Right.
You know what I mean? It is a shooting game, but it has a completely different feeling to it. And there's so many people in the same game and stuff. I remember seeing Warcraft 2, and my mind was like fucking blown. I remember I was watching my friend's older brother. He was playing. I kept saying, well, which one are you? And he goes, I'm all of them. I'm the orcs. And I'm like, oh my God. And I said, what are you doing? I'm like, and I was probably like 10 or something like that when I was watching this happen. I said, what are you doing? He goes, we're mining wood to make boats. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He made the boat. He loaded it up with ogres, and the boat went across the water and unloaded and then killed all these peasants.
You're right.
And foot soldiers. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
That's interesting.
And then eventually that volleyed me into StarCraft, which is where I got into multiplayer.
Some of my first experiences with StarCraft, I remember like just lifting and landing buildings and that kind of stuff and just playing around with the mechanics
Yeah.
of the game because they were so different from what I experienced. Like even just loading and unloading stuff was crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, I can like transport these units up a cliff and then put them down here and they live here now. You know?
Yeah. It's
I remember
crazy.
lifting my starport and landing on a cliff. I'm like, no one's touching this starport. It's up on a cliff now.
Yeah.
You know? I'm gonna build flying units
Feel
on a
safe
cliff
up there, yeah.
Yeah. But like
I
just a
actually
little
know
stuff
exactly
like that.
feeling when I first landed a starport onto high ground, and I'm like, well, this makes
This
sense.
makes
'cause
sense, yeah.
You can make air units up here, and it doesn't have to be connected to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so
what I
crazy.
did. So I guess eventually that pulled me in. The only reason why I played StarCraft 2 is because I had fond memories of StarCraft 1, but it was the first ladder I ever played, so I was really drawn in by like improving.
I love laddering.
But the original point, which is an interesting one, is how what's it like to commentate StarCraft 1 as a StarCraft 2
Yeah, well, I
programmer?
would because, for me, it was kind of fascinating. I want to point out, so Ryan's taking a picture of the picture. I am in my underwear here, but I think if you're paying at least $5 on Patreon, you'll see me in my underwear with a shirt on. Okay. So it's not that disgusting, but I just realized as you were doing that, I'm like, yeah, we really did this on the fly, didn't we? Yeah, for me, it was tricky to kind of learn how to cast StarCraft 2 after coming from StarCraft 1 because there were things I had to unlearn. What is it like for you?
Well, it's different, right? Because you got lucky a little bit with it because it was so new, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
You can't really go wrong with it when it's the new because it's so new. Like everyone's figuring out everything. The game, everyone was playing so poorly and everything was so unoptimized that even as a commentator, you can just commentate what's happening on the screen. You're not wrong.
This is how I was able to cast Heroes of the Storm. I was not good at MOBAs.
Well,
I'm just sort of like, okay, I'm going to try to figure this out, but I can't be that wrong.
You really can't,
because it's like we don't really
But
know.
for me,
Yeah.
it's reversed. I'm commentating a game that's 10, 15 years old.
StarCraft 1 is like, no, it's this game's 21 years old.
Yeah, it's almost as
so
old
this
as
is
me.
like
So
it's basically the most hardcore viewer base or people who are trying to get into it now.
right.
Which is not too late to get into either StarCraft still. It's going to be around forever, but
Yeah, the average consumer of Brood War 2 has like very strong opinions.
yeah.
So I'm probably not that bad as a commentator for the average person, but for the average audience of Brood War, it's not the average person. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I feel like I'm not a great substitute, but at the same time, like I can't be because I didn't grow up playing the game and I don't play it every day and I don't like it. It's not my main source of income and it's not what I pride myself on. So it's really hard to like. I don't just go into being like,
basically,
Marine shoots a target.
To clarify what you're saying for people listening, Artosis is going to be out of town. You're a StarCraft 2 Code S player, two-time Code S player,
soon to be 3 times.
A grandmaster. You've done everything in StarCraft 2.
Yes.
Okay. You run a team house for pro gamers out here, but nobody besides Dan and me really has a long background in StarCraft 1, so we're kind of in this odd spot out here.
Right.
The work is enough that Dan and me can basically do all the days unless something happens where we have to go overseas.
Right.
Or like somebody gets sick or something. So you're in this spot where you're trying to learn the game and cast it as well as you can. But it is a different game than StarCraft 2.
Well, even like my high experience, high knowledge of StarCraft 2 can inhibit me or hurt me in Brood War.
Yeah.
Because you can make correlations between the two games that are incorrect, or you can assume things that are incorrect. Like, I would almost rather come into it with no experience than what I have, because it's so unintuitive sometimes. Well, like all the simple stuff I've figured out already. Like, I'm not going to go in it being like, oh, it's weird, the Zerg's down in supply, he's just dead, or what? Because that would be the case in StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a TVZ and you're down 20 supply, you're dead. I don't care who you are. But in StarCraft 1, it's nothing like that.
Yeah, you can have a Zerg at like 110 supply and a Protoss at 200 supply.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't know who's going to win.
So like that itself is so unintuitive for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've learned to move past all that stuff, and it's been a process, but it's still a process. It's still going. And the fact that I'm here now to study is an example of me not just like going into it being like, oh, the Marine shoots the target.
So what do you feel like you want to learn today?
I mean, I actually want to learn more for playing.
For playing? I
like,
actually think playing is the key thing that allows you to get the knowledge, specifically in StarCraft 1, especially if you're from StarCraft 2, because what you see on the screen, it's deceptive. Mm-hmm. In StarCraft 1, you can take a maxed army and actually move it up a ramp, overwhelm something. There's all these complications with like just trying to get a small army to go up.
Goons, they do not like
just run up a
ramps.
ramp, or they try to fight on hills. Mm-hmm. And when you get the feel for that, suddenly it changes, I think, the landscape in your head of what's actually happening.
What actually is possible too.
Yeah.
Like you may look at it and see like, oh, it's 4 goons versus 2 on a high ground. Why doesn't he just go up the ramp?
Yeah.
You
it's
can't.
like, well, actually, yeah.
All right.
Workers also are stronger in StarCraft 1.
Yeah, it's just
they're shockingly better.
Yeah, they are.
They're like one of the best units in the game, basically, when you're in fights, because the AI doesn't prioritize workers ever in a fight.
I've had some really weird experiences with workers too, though. Like I have a bunch of probes against Zerglings. I'm just like, probes just die.
Oh, they just die.
Yeah.
No,
But
in my own play, I've come to this conclusion that if I ever let Zerglings get past my wall in, I'm probably going to lose the game. It can be 2 as well.
Right.
And at high levels, when people do this, they'll like run around with 2 lings.
Mm-hmm. And they never die.
And they never die. And then they'll send a bunch of lings to the front, and the 2 lings that were in my main down and kill the cannon.
Right.
So there's this whole thing you got to learn about just never letting anything happen early on.
But yeah, that's a problem with coming back as a commentator for Brood War.
Yeah.
Because I think if it was a new esport I would do really well. Like I'm not like a super ego, like I do everything perfectly or whatever. But like things that I can't just call what's happening on the screen because it's so much deeper than that because of how many years it's been developing. You know what I mean? The game's been developing for so many years. It's unfair to just commentate what's happening on the screen. It's the same with StarCraft 2. It's just so deep. But a new esport really doesn't have that much depth because it hasn't been developed yet, even in the pro level.
Right.
You're just playing fast, or you're just doing things that other people don't expect.
You figured out some gimmick, and you're trying to do that as quickly as possible.
There's no depth to it yet. But like now, both StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 1 have been out for so many years. StarCraft 2 has been out for almost 10. StarCraft 1 been out for 20. So like these games have so much depth to them. Like you can't just go into it commentating without a ton of experience.
One of the things I found challenging, I shouldn't say challenging, just a thing I've kind of figured out with casting StarCraft 2 is that because the game's patched,
it's way harder too. Yeah.
It can be harder, because like I don't know.
No,
you know what I mean? Like I look at these patch notes and I go, there's a reason why I never try to draw any conclusions before a cast about a patch. I just don't know.
No,
or I could think something's a big deal and it's just nothing happens. So it's like,
I mean, even pro gamers are at fault for this too. Like I made some calls on the original Time Warp with Dan, and Dan makes fun of me for still to this day about it.
Yeah.
You know, our Time Warp eventually had like a nerf where it would take 75% attacking speed from whatever it was inside the circle. So basically, if you throw it down on a bunch of spores, they shoot 75% of their normal speed. And I'm like, okay, that sounds insane, right? Like, let's say I have a Sky Toss army. This is back when Sky Toss was really big. You remember people would just sit there forever with spores? I'm like,
right.
You just throw a Time Warp down on the spores and attack, and that sounds sick, right? But it was never really used. So, I mean, that was a hypothesis I had that didn't turn out. And he still makes fun of me to this day about it. But, you know, like that just happens, right?
Yeah.
Things that make sense in your head don't necessarily play out the way you'd think they would.
So out of all the matchups in StarCraft 1 when you cast, what do you think is the one that you feel comes easiest to you? Or
There's a couple, actually. ZVP feels very, like, understandable. Yeah. Like, there's very clear goals for each race at certain points that I can almost directly correlate to StarCraft 2 even. Like, the Ling Hydra attacks versus, like, not dying. Like, I know this is highly simplified, but, you know, like Hydra busts and stuff like that. Like, I can totally understand that from a StarCraft 2 perspective. Even though it's different, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Even like the mid to late game, like once we're getting to like the late game fights, mid game fights, I would say, where it's like storms are dodging and hydras are trying to like snipe off Templar and stuff. Like all this stuff I get.
Yeah.
Even mutas are really intricate in that matchup, which I feel like I understand as well. So PvZ feels really good. Also TVP feels very StarCraft 2-esque, but in a different way. Where like Protoss is the Zerg player.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Protoss operates in that. Where they kind of just like run around the map and gobble everything up.
Yeah, so I can almost relate that, but in a different way. It's very strange that one race can correlate to another one in StarCraft 2, but it actually has a lot of similarities if you look at it.
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing that jumped out immediately when I was like, oh, you just keep taking an extra base over your Terran and you overwhelm them with like tactics and recalls and stuff.
Yeah.
So
what is the hardest matchup?
Probably TVT, and
that's the hardest for me too.
TVT is really hard because it's really intricate, but it looks very basic too.
Yeah.
So even if you cast what you think you're casting right, it could be totally wrong, and you could be right in the same way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's also just really hard to make interesting, I think, as a commentator sometimes. Like commentators have more than just one job of just commentating what's on the screen. There's also entertainment aspects and filling downtime and you can't always just be like, oh yeah, this tank is sieging, this tank's unsieging, like there's a really complex thing to it. Fortunately, I'm usually casting with you guys, so it's not that hard. But for example, I had Cadenzi one time, and she's not bad. She's really good. But when you're the lead on the downtime or on when you should play by play or when you should be entertaining, all this stuff is really complex and hard. So this is the thing that immediately jumps out to me for complexity and hardness in commentary is TVT and when to fill and when not to fill. But usually I have you guys, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, TVT, I got to rely a little bit more on Dan because he's a Terran player in StarCraft 1. It's weird because there's so many different openings in that matchup, and it is usually the longest matchup, that and PVT. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's really, like, I don't know, it's hard to know what to call what, and there's all this intricacies with like fighting with tanks in the middle of the map, and I don't know. TVT is a tough one.
Yeah.
ZVZ I find easy.
ZVZ I also find easy too.
But it's such an explosive matchup. It can end so quickly.
Mm-hmm. Usually though, it does end on mistakes or on like it's very obvious. Usually, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's very rare that it's a subtle ZVZ loss where like, how did that happen? It's usually like a very big turning point, which I find really easy for me to understand. For example, like if there's a muta fight and one person comes ahead, they usually win the game.
Yeah.
Or like someone runs into a Scourge or something, like, well, that was a big mistake. Like,
right, yeah.
There's lots of like little things that can just end games in ZVZ. It's really difficult when there's just when that doesn't happen, Like when it's just a straight up fight and you're like, why did this person win that fight? And there's a deeper meaning to it, and if you played the game a lot, you would have an immediate answer, but if you don't, it's really hard. Even in StarCraft 2, there's a lot of that. So I don't envy anybody who comes into commentary without playing the game a ton.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun though tomorrow. I think if we kind of take
it's different for us tomorrow though too, because we're commentating the qualifiers.
Right.
And because it's such a long cast, I think as long as we go into it having fun, there's no loser.
I think also viewers are pretty forgiving.
Yeah.
Like to be frank, we should not be doing a cast this long, but
especially the KSL stuff too, because the KSL actually
this is probably going to be a 10-hour broadcast too. Which I can't believe we're still having to do this, but this is like this is what's going down. So it's like, all right,
I do
want to support StarCraft, and I will have a fun day doing it. But yeah, it's hard, to do a long day like that, especially when it's like not your game.
It's
what I mean?
Hard, but at the same time, one of my favorite commentary jobs I've ever done in my entire career was the 12-hour one with Dan, because I learned so much. This was really early on in my Brood War career, like if you want to call it a career. Like this probably was like one of the first, second, or third casts. I think it was like one of the very early ones.
Yeah.
And I just learned so much. And I went into it with like the focus of I'm a StarCraft 2 player. Teach me what's going on kind of lens.
Yeah.
And it was very fun. It was very interesting. We were relating things to StarCraft 2. I think a lot of the viewership was StarCraft 2 as well. So it was really good for just a community mix, which I think should happen more with StarCraft 2 and Brood War. But it just depends on how the cast goes. I think as long as we're having fun and it's not too serious, it's never a bad cast.
It is weird that people are so tribal with StarCraft 1 or StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird.
It's really weird. Like if everyone's
like,
having
actually,
fun, why
you know what
is
I
there
don't even
problem?
like is I don't even like when people go like, because you'll see this with StarCraft 2 casters that go, StarCraft 2 is the best game and fuck other games, and it's just like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
How unsophisticated do you have to be to have decided that you don't like or care about other games? Like, if you're into StarCraft at all, you have to have been such an open-minded person to delve into this thing. And if there's this much beauty in this one thing in the world, why are other things not also possibly interesting?
Well, I think some of it becomes elitism and like envy towards the smaller community or the easier games, I guess you could say.
Yeah, or somehow they're in contempt at
like
other
for example,
games.
if you're StarCraft 2, we were at one point the top dog, and I think there's a lot of people that want to hold on to that, and a lot of people that want to blame League or blame whatever.
Or they have this like inferiority complex, or
there's big inferiority.
They're somehow like worried that they're not in the biggest game, which I don't even understand.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, you've made a conscious decision to be a part of StarCraft, which is great, but why do you got to take the other people down that don't?
Yeah,
it feels like you should be more welcoming if you want to bring more people in, which is I think everybody's goal.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting.
I mean, when StarCraft Remastered was coming, it was so crazy. All these people that I know, some of them I work with, were like just saying crazy shit about StarCraft 1, like before it came out, about how like no one's going to play it and it's not good, or other people are like, it's going to kill StarCraft 2, and it's just like, you guys are just insane. Like,
have we talked about what would happen if StarCraft 3 was released?
Here's what I think would happen. I think it wouldn't impact StarCraft 1
at all. Exactly.
I think it would be devastating to StarCraft 2.
Exactly.
And people are probably going to be pissed at me for saying that, but I think
it's
that's
not.
true.
No, but it's true, 100%.
RTS people, minus the Koreans who just only play StarCraft 1. But I think even then, it would StarCraft 1 would take a hit for a little bit.
Yeah.
All the people who play RTS games, we know that there's not a lot that come out. So let's say a StarCraft 3 comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Literally all casters and players, and whether they're in Warcraft 3 over in China, they're playing StarCraft in Korea, or they're playing, let's say, StarCraft 2 in Europe or North America, everybody would go, all right, we got to get on board with StarCraft 3 for a little bit.
Yeah.
We got to ride this one out and see what happens. So I think it would be very bad for StarCraft 2. But I think
the thing is, StarCraft 2's motto of like what it is doesn't really allow it to be a direct competitor for StarCraft 3. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like Blizzard, if Blizzard puts a StarCraft 3 out, it wouldn't make any sense to support a StarCraft 2 esports scene and a StarCraft 3 esports scene, because their esports in general is supposed to be advertising for the game in general. And they're both competing with each other, but you're also on both of them. So it would make sense to shift over their whole thing to StarCraft 3 and in hopes to bring more people into that, because StarCraft 2 is around its course, it's 10 years old. And the way StarCraft 2 players are, I think would also make sense for them to switch over, because they're in such a heavily, I want to say, subsidized game.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, it makes sense for them to switch over. It's not like Brood War. Brood War almost has a grassroots scene now, where everybody's almost figured a way to support themselves to some extent. And now more supports come in, but most people made it on their own for a long time, right? Or they just made it because they liked the game, or they just played it because it was fun or nostalgia or whatever.
Brood War has a really robust streaming scene in Korea. Now. On Africa TV. So, like, people don't know this, I think, if you only use Twitch, but StarCraft 1 is still one of the most watched games for stream.
It's way
numbers.
Bigger than StarCraft 2 here.
Yeah. But it's on a different... some people might even not know this, but Africa TV is actually a competitor to Twitch. It's another streaming platform, but we put GSL, that show, on Twitch because the global audience is so big. But
there's a reason why ASL isn't on Twitch is all. You know?
Right. So basically, they're fighting with ASL to try to get enough global viewership. It has not done well though. They've not really succeeded in that. It seems like non-Koreans just want to use Twitch. It's weird too, because there actually should be competing platforms. Like, remember when Mixer came out?
Yeah.
I mean, how's Mixer doing? Do we know?
I have no idea.
Ninja signed with Mixer. They're owned by Microsoft, right?
I mean, they have to be doing well enough. Like, if they have Ninja or whatever, like, they have to be. Well, they're probably not a.
The goal is, they probably gave Ninja a couple $1 million, and then they're hoping that they can vacuum his audience onto their platform.
It'd have to be some insane number. You think a couple million? It'd have to be an insane number.
10 million? I don't know. These are just like numbers I'm putting
I feel like even 10 million is low. If you think
Ryan,
about
can you Google how much Ninja got?
I don't even know if that's a public thing, but I would have to imagine it'd be 50 million. Something like that.
50 million.
If you think about how much he makes a month on Twitch.
Can you be my agent, man? I love how you're talking.
I mean, it would be insane. It'd have to be insane.
Here's the thing. People should want some competition to Twitch.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, this is sort of, you don't generally want a monopoly. Like, you want to have Samsung and Apple battling to make better phones, because if one of them just does it, then they can slack off, you know?
Yeah. I honestly think Twitch has had a monopoly for too long already.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of weird contract stuff that they should not get away with, I think, on Twitch. Like what? Like a lot of exclusivity with partners, and a lot of, like, there's just a lot of partner cuts that are questionable. The weird thing was the exclusivity. I'm pretty sure you can't stream on YouTube if you're a Twitch streamer. You could just get banned from Twitch, like that kind of stuff, or unpartnered or whatever. There's a lot of exclusivity stuff that just feels weird, because there should be cross-platform stuff. But
I didn't know about that. I know one problem that people have encountered with Twitch is when they're trying to do shows. I believe this actually happened with KSL. Is they've been treating shows like they're streamers. So they're like, we want you to stream for this many hours. But like, when you do a show, it's like, well, the show is just going to be the show.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, that formula like we want this many hours.
It doesn't really work.
Yeah, it's just like, well, I mean, part of the reason why this is going to be a 10-hour cast tomorrow, I believe, is because of that.
Yeah, that's strange.
The requirements that Twitch had for that, where it's like, well, this is not even technically this is bad for the show.
If it's 10 hours long,
this is just sort of an odd
commentators
thing.
are dragging
How are you
along?
supposed to enjoy the entire show unless you have 10 hours? I mean, that's literally an entire person's day.
Right. Well, there's a lot of random stuff though. Like, well, to be honest, they haven't had any competition really for a long time. Like, you could argue YouTube, but even like their banning policies and like feel very arbitrary in some situations, like where people get banned and don't get banned for almost on popularity.
I almost think in their defense, I mean, Twitch is like the Wild West of the internet in a lot of ways.
Sure.
I mean, it used to be that like 4chan was kind of like the place where controversy happened. I guess it still is. But you know, it's a message board.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's easier to regulate messages on a board. But when you have people streaming videos of, I mean, basically anything, right?
Anything, yeah.
And then there's chat rooms where, I mean, at the rate at which language evolves and memes grow, it's so hard to police.
Yeah,
any
I mean, it is.
thing. I mean,
it's just, well, Twitch has incentives to not ban people, right? Based off of popularity. Like, for example, let's say Ninja did some crazy stuff. Crazy.
Like go to Mixer?
No, well, like, okay, for example, Dr. Disrespect filming, I think he filmed a bathroom where there was like a 12-year-old peeing or something like that. I guarantee you, if you're a smaller streamer, you're done. You're banned forever.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but
the thing is
you're never going to ban Dr. Disrespect forever because that's like an insane income revenue stream for you. Like, you actually make a ton of money off of Dr. Disrespect.
Hey, Ryan, did you find how much Ninja made? No idea? Okay, I thought maybe it was somewhere in some news article or something. I mean, so like that Dr. Disrespect thing. By the way, I love him.
Yeah, he's great.
I remember the day I found Dr. Disrespect, and I'm like, this guy's a fucking genius.
He's a genius, yeah, for a streamer.
And he's actually made him. I think he's made his job incredibly difficult because he is a character.
Yeah,
he's playing a character, but he's good. Like when you watch him play, he's actually really sick. He's really good at what he's doing. But I mean, he's even playing with sunglasses on. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Playing a character. And I mean, his character is, of course, over the top, kind of a homage to the 80s action heroes where, you know, it was all about manliness and mustaches and mullets were okay. You know, this whole world. I mean, he's got it down perfectly to like his soundtrack that he plays, and he was I think he was actually the first guy that was really using green screens in a creative way.
Yeah, even his transitions and stuff are very, you know, different from most streamers.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is absolutely a genius. I mean, I guess he probably shouldn't have gone to the bathroom, but I personally did not lose any respect for him at all.
No, I didn't either.
I'm just like, I want him to just do whatever, man, because he's so funny.
I honestly blame the cameraman. I'm like, why? Why would the cameraman just follow him in the bathroom?
Yeah. I guess there's also this issue where it's like, okay, yeah, I guess technically going into the bathroom and there are literally people urinating in there.
Yeah.
I guess that's an obvious. There's nothing Twitch can do either. They're just like, all right.
Well, yeah. It just feels arbitrary, but I guess it has to be too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard for Twitch.
It's definitely hard for Twitch.
I know people get mad at him, but I do feel like this is really hard.
Yeah.
To manage, and
they need like really straightforward guidelines, but at the same time, you can't really have that because there's so many possibilities.
Well, there's also been a lot of kind of ethical questions coming up in Silicon Valley in general, like with there
have been a ton,
like with Twitter and like, you know, are conservative people being banned more often than liberal people. Like you can have racist people will say something racist and one person's banned but another person's not.
Yeah. Interpretation of certain words.
Yes, yeah. It's
really hard to moderate.
Yeah.
I mean, even like Twitter is in a really hard spot, I think, for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're basically censoring free speech, but at the same time, you kind of have to some extent. It's really complicated.
The argument,
because there's consumers on the other end, right?
Well, it's also like, I mean, if I had some tweet, you know, kill all Koreans or something like that, it's like, well, this is a call to violence, right?
Right.
This is
like, there's nothing good about that.
Right.
You would never have that, like Twitter be like, okay, well, this is free speech. Let's leave it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we don't really have full freedom of speech, right? Like you can't go out and, make hate crimes and just, I don't believe you're allowed to.
No, well, I mean,
but I don't know.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
It's also more complicated when you get into a global perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because like Twitter is. I saw this tweet a long time ago. It was from some comedian. I can't remember who wrote it, but it was so good. It said, "Twitter is for telling dick jokes and starting revolutions."
That's a good quote.
There's so many revolutions that have happened on Twitter. It's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you like having a Twitter account?
I mean, I'm not big enough to not like it, I think. Like all the people that interact with me on Twitter are my fans or friends or whoever. Like I have a couple
really
haters,
nice to me on Twitter.
Yeah.
People are just so but the thing is, I actually hate social media.
Yeah.
I guess when StarCraft 2 first came out, people were just awful. But now it's like,
right.
I don't know.
Well, I think we're in a different light than you used to be, right?
I guess if you're following me now, you're probably just more used to me.
And you're more of a StarCraft fan, but possibly back then you were just an esports person or
just
whatever.
Some gamer person.
Also, there was a lot of jealousy back then, like because everyone was blowing up at that time.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like jealousy is the number one thing that comes off on social media, right? Like as soon as someone's doing something good, it's just like one person like, "Fuck you, you're a piece of trash. Like you're the worst human being ever." And it's like, well, that's weird,
dude. I'm gonna tell you a story, and I'm gonna try. I don't want this person's identity getting out there, but it's worth telling. Basically, this person who talked a lot of shit, like super toxic, not even like obnoxious or annoying. Like they were actually saying really shitty, awful things to people on Twitter. In this really weird circumstance, I ended up getting to meet this person. Okay,
right,
with Dan, and we knew that we were going to meet him beforehand. So we're like, okay, what's this person going to be like? And this guy was we met him, and it was like, Dan
Wait,
said
before
yes.
you get in this, I feel like there's very easy predictions on what this guy would be like.
Yes, go ahead.
He's either the worst human being ever, or he's completely different. Like
this person was the most pathetic human being.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Dan turned and looked at me as the guy went to me. He said, "Why do we ever care about what someone would say about us on the internet?"
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
you
look at this guy and you go, "Well, this guy is, looks awful, no social skills, like no hygiene,
right?
Personal
just
hygiene.
Doesn't care.
You're just like, oh, your life's awful." You know what I mean? This is, and it's so bad that you are lashing out at strangers that you see
that you don't even know,
that you don't know,
right?
And sending them personal attacks.
I mean, if you think about it, what would you have to be doing in your life to make personal attacks on people you don't know?
Something's not going right.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's
like, if you're doing your own thing and you're having a good life, I don't see any point in stopping and being like, oh, well, fuck that guy, I don't like him. Even if you don't like, you can totally have an opinion. Like, I don't particularly like this person's casting. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this, band or something.
Yeah,
I don't like.
It's
their
more
music.
about like going out of your way to voice the fact that you don't, and in a toxic way too, not even constructive. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't have anything else to do on a Friday or a Saturday or whatever day it is.
But how much are you on social media? Because you strike me as a very well-adjusted person.
I think I'm healthily on it, where like I check my message. I don't tweet every day, and I tweet when I need to grow a brand or grow something that I'm doing or, want people to watch. But I don't tweet like, oh, I had this sandwich for this breakfast or whatever. And I feel like I'm very good at taking criticism when it's well warranted. I think I know when criticism is warranted and not.
Yeah.
So, and I also know when people are just being dicks and not.
Yeah.
So I think I've made a healthy, relationship with Twitter and Instagram or whatever, and I did that intentionally because I knew what my career intended or entails rather.
Do you use Facebook?
No.
Yeah, me too. So this is what I find fascinating. You don't use Facebook either, Ryan?
I mean, like Facebook is
okay.
Like,
so
I use it to talk to my mom.
Yeah, I keep it because I have like family members in America.
Yeah, that's
that
the
like
reason.
I don't have their phone numbers even.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like cousins that I've seen maybe once or twice in the last like 10 years or something, like at a wedding or a funeral or something like that. I don't want to, but I don't update my Facebook. I don't check Facebook. And let me tell you something, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know why this is. I feel psychologically so much more sane not checking Facebook. Now, Twitter, I feel like I go crazy if I look at it too much, and I really try to basically just not
Do you think
use
that
it and look at it.
it's literally a part of our jobs to some extent to use Twitter.
Right.
If it had no affiliation with your career, would you use it? If it was like Nick Plot and it had nothing to do with your career,
like if I'm like some pot farmer and
if you're
like
just
Oregon and I just like I'm off the grid, and I don't need Twitter, I wouldn't use it.
You're just Nick Plot.
No, I would, I'm not.
I think I wouldn't either. Because I don't really gain anything from it. I mean, maybe news purposes I would, but even then, I don't see myself using it.
Yeah, I think it's easy to
follow
follow
I use it for
the
news purposes on esports to some extent, but not for anything else. So I really don't see any consumable necessity for
it's like
Twitter.
For us in our jobs, like, and I've actually been trying actively to tweet a little bit more.
Yeah,
like I tweeted I went to the Joker movie.
I
didn't have to do that, but I was like, well, this is something I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I don't feel the need to share
everything
with like this podcast I'm making to share with people.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is something for people. I'm like, this is for you.
Yeah, this is different though, too.
Yeah, I think this is a more healthy way.
Well, like this is something we sit down and we're like, we want to share thoughts on things.
Also, I just find, like, for instance, with Twitter, it's like, well, you can't really say that much,
right?
In the amount of characters, which is fine. I think Twitter's an incredible tool, for the world, but
it is a specific purpose.
There's also something weird about the juxtaposition of like this tweet sharing this meme and then this breaking news about a war,
right,
and then someone saying my self-esteem isn't very good today, and it's like this weird.
It's like a tier system where I would like to block like certain
aspects
of Twitter.
Like I mean, this is why I think Reddit's been so successful, is I can go to like if I
r/Starcraft and it's all Starcraft
or like if I want to go to like I one of my guilty pleasures, I go to r/cringe.
Okay, yeah, I like that too.
I like that every once in a while. Occasionally when it's late at night, I'm like, let's go see what's on r/cringe, or like on a public freak out. I mean, I'll occasionally go and look at that stuff, but it's like I don't want to just see stuff on r/cringe just randomly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, you're in the mood for some consuming something, right?
I've been having some problem on Twitter where these accounts that all retweet each other, and they're usually like memes. There's some surgery account that will just it'll show like a human beating heart, or like some operation happening, and it just comes up in my.
That's fun.
And I'm not one of those people that can like watch like beheading videos.
Yeah,
like I can't.
I watched one of those once and I was never again.
No, I had this
worst experience of my life when I was 14.
Oh no, when I was a kid, there was this. I think it was called Faces of Death. Can you Google this? I'm not going to watch it. I just want to see if the name's correct. Faces of Death was this video they released of, and it was just like people dying. It was like people getting shot or people being hit by a train. It's somehow they packaged this all together and then sold it. And like this was somehow not illegal. There was another thing called bum fights, which was like some fucking sociopaths were like paying bums to fight, homeless people, to fight each other or just do awful things to themselves.
I mean, there was a subreddit for a while. It's like r/people die or whatever.
Oh no, I can't handle that. I saw those videos and it like traumatized me. Like I don't want to watch that stuff. And this Twitter account keeps popping. These tweets keep coming up with just like organs or like someone's with their head open and they're like operating on a brain. And I'm like, why is this? I keep reporting it too, and it's not going away. Like I don't want to see this, but in these like circle jerk retweet accounts, it keeps popping up, man.
Right.
It like freaks me out.
I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, I know.
So what about like needles or blood or like drawing blood? Does that ever bother you?
It used to, but when I got the stem cell treatment for my hand, they had to draw like so much blood out of my arms because I also had, what is it called? I think it's called PRP injections. I think. I might need you to Google it. Is that correct? PRP injections? Okay. Yeah, where they take your blood out and then they spit it in a centrifuge. And then they inject it back into you.
That's strange. It separates something from the blood?
I don't know, man. It's like some stuff like sorcerers do. I don't really understand what it is.
Or what?
The doctor explained it to me, but it was in Korean, and I'm like, well, my Korean's not that good to understand this. So I kind of was like, nay, okay. Korea. Like, I didn't fully get it, but they had to draw so much blood that it didn't. I just ended up getting used to it. I was going in every week, and they were shooting my hands up with this stuff. So it doesn't bother me anymore. I think Dan does not like needles, I believe.
Huh.
What about you? Do you find?
I don't mind it that much, I guess. I mean, like, nobody's a fan of needles, right? Like, nobody wants to go and get a needle in their hand. It's more about the pain, but that's not really a thing, right? Like, it stings, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay. I would not say I have a fear of blood or needles or anything. I do not like watching surgeries and stuff either, but I can watch them. I just don't particularly like it.
Yeah, it freaks me out. I don't know.
I forgot I had a thing.
Porn is allowed on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
that's fascinating.
They're
just fine with it.
I never get porn on my Twitter feed ever until I shouldn't have it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll never get it when I'm sitting at home playing StarCraft. I'm scrolling through it. I'll get it when I'm at work or I'm like at a meeting and I'm looking at my Twitter.
It'll happen to me when I'm on like the train and there's like
on the train. I'm like,
sitting
why
between
now?
two old ladies and I'm just scrolling down. Whoa!
Yeah.
Oh!
I mute those people immediately. I'm like, why? Like, why? Why are we retweeting porn? I don't get it. Like, that has to be one of the least tasteful things
I don't
ever.
even understand how it's like, for instance, pornography is banned in Korea. Now, that being said, if you needed to watch porn, you could get a VPN. It's not like it's unobtainable.
You don't get arrested.
Here. Yeah. But how is it that porn, it just shows up on my Twitter feed if I'm in Korea?
Yeah, I don't know how that works either.
You know, I was here the day porn got banned.
You were?
I was here the day. I remember that day. That was my 9/11, guys. I was like, you want to know why? You want to know how I found out? Because I was trying to watch porn that day. And I'm like, what? And I actually tweeted it out. I was like, is porn banned in Korea? Like, is anybody else like unable to get porn? Like, yeah.
That website's kind of scary too. If you see it the first time, you're like, whoa.
Yeah. You're like, oh, all right.
The government's like not letting me access this website.
Like, all right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
here's a question for you.
Sure.
Why is it that you, me, and Ryan, who's recording this, we live in a foreign country? Why is it that we are okay not using Facebook? Because a lot of the people that I know that use Facebook, it's like they're still in their hometowns. And
I think we're less connected to our communities. And I think Facebook is more of a community thing than what it used to be. Like, for example, most of my Facebook friends, I would say over 50% of them are high school friends or people that grew up in my town. But all these people I'm so disconnected from now because I've moved away that I don't really have any need to check up on who's having babies over there or who's fucking who or whatever, right? Because really is so disconnected from me. I'm more connected with the people that are immediately around me. So that's more, you guys, Twitter or whatever. Yeah. This is all more immediate to me than Facebook. And I think that's probably similar with both of you guys.
I also guess it's like, I don't want to share. Like, Facebook doesn't seem to have, I guess you can modify this, but it doesn't have any proper filter for me where it's like, I only want these people to see this.
Right.
It's like I would have to go through my entire Facebook and then decide how close I am to each of these people and what I want to share. Like, if I'm showing, I don't know, like photos of my house or a night out of drinks or a dinner, do I really want to show that to everybody I've ever known, which is basically what Facebook is
or anyone
now?
who Googles you? I mean,
yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And at least with Twitter, it clearly is. I guess Facebook was intended to like connect people, like communities and family members, but also people you work with. Where Twitter, it's like very clear. It's like, no, this is everything.
If you tweet something, you're expecting everyone to see it.
And you can't share too much on Twitter.
Right.
With Facebook, it can be nauseating.
The lines get
how self-indulgent people can get. And also, like, the way people can self-immolate on Facebook is crazy. Like, you ever seen something on Facebook where you're like, you should not have posted that?
Yeah, how do you think that's a good thing
How
to
do you
post?
think that's a good thing to share with everybody you've ever known?
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even on Twitter, though, sometimes I think that, too. I'm like, how can you possibly
People are so
tweet
dumb
that?
on Twitter, man. It's so crazy.
Honestly,
like,
when people, there's just so many people that put out random shit that it's just like, why would you ever put that out in hindsight? Like, did you not think for like 2 seconds about what you were posting?
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much of it. And I'm amazed. Like, and these are all people with public communities and like people that are, have a following. I'm like, why would you ever, like, this happens so much.
It's fascinating.
It's really fascinating.
I almost feel like people need to, like in school or something, need to be educated about social media. Because it's like this thing we just have now.
Yeah.
And it's just here and everybody's using it.
I think we will eventually have that happen.
Like one thing I've seen is like, people that are wanted a job and didn't get it, or they want to work with a game company and all they're doing is shitting on how dumb the game designers are, or how bad the game is, and how it's like these people have the same internet as you. I mean, it's your right to say that, right? But you have to understand, if you badmouth this company that didn't hire you, or you're trying to get hired and you're talking shit, it's like, well, I don't understand what you're doing. Like, what is it?
It's funny that people don't see, especially when it's public shaming, right?
Yes.
Like, there's people that make Reddit threads about how they don't like Blizzard, that work with Blizzard, and I'm like, well, what happens if you want to work at Riot or anywhere else? And this comes up?
No, it's like, and this is not us saying like don't rag on publishers. It's just like,
but if you have a connection with the publisher,
yeah, like if I have some kind of issue, let's say I'm worried about something involving the state of StarCraft 2, I would just text the people at Blizzard, talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm connected with them. I've seen people who have connections with Blizzard or other places, and they're like, instead they're
like
airing
a Reddit thread or
on,
something. It's like,
it's just odd. I don't I find it odd.
It's like, who are you talking to on Reddit? Who's going to come up with the answer here?
Yeah.
But this happens so much too. I just don't get it. I mean, I guess there's just like not enough awareness of where you are as who you depend on as a person. Like, there are people that you clearly depend on for your living. I don't care who you are. Mm-hmm. Literally everybody has this. Maybe not, I don't know, Bezos or somebody, but yeah, everybody here has like somebody or someone that has control over your means of living.
And again, it's your right to say it. I just am surprised that people have put out stuff there and then they're shocked if this company doesn't want to work with me anymore. And this is like with all walks of life. It's like these people have the same internet as you. I've seen people who have just talked shit on me on the internet, and I'm like, I can see that. Like, I've worked with you, but why are you doing that? If you have a problem with me, like, you have my phone number, you can talk to me. This is weird. This is weird, and now it's out there, and everybody can see it.
Yeah,
and it doesn't look good for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just it's odd. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you doing this podcast I've sprung on you.
That's no problem.
I have to record the intro and outro now for Spag's podcast that we did. I don't know when this one's going to air. We might just keep this one for a little bit.
Keep it. It's totally fine.
Yeah, any day. Just drop it whenever. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was fun sitting down with Jake. Thanks again, Jake, for doing that and letting me spring that on you totally out of nowhere. Again, if you want to hear the after show, just support us on Patreon, and we'll give you access to that. I don't know, man. I don't know if there's anything else I have to say. I got a lot of casting coming up here. WCS is just around the corner, and then I'm going to be at BlizzCon. Are we going to release one more podcast before I go to BlizzCon? I think we would, right?
I think we will.
Yeah, I think we will. Okay, so this won't be the last one. But anyways, guys, be good to each other. I love you guys. And we have to talk about the $100 Patreon support.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, can we read those names off now?
I believe it is Rohit Sambadi, Charlie Sheaver, and John Kernicki.
Guys, thank you, all three of you, for supporting us. The money that is donated here is going to go back to make the podcast better. So cameras, mics, all that stuff. So it's really appreciated. This podcast was produced by State, artwork by Ala Reese, music by Mark Lentz. I'll see you guys again soon. Thanks again for listening. Bye-bye.